at that point, they construct, along with the civil engineer and architects, they construct a new drawing based off this information, off of a culmination of different subs. Like, hey, I think he's got a good idea. I think he's got a good idea. They regenerate these drawings and send them back out for, now maybe we're at 50% drawings. So now, we're able to tighten the gap a little bit. So it's still a budgetary type bid, but we're giving, a description of what we think will work best and a monetary amount, like what we think it's going to do or take to do our portion of the work.
ProfitDig. All right, we're running, coming to you live. Yes. This is the ProfitDig radio show, I guess. Or
it is the ProfitDig radio show. ProfitDig.com. Happy to see everyone.
You guess.
Hopefully you're.
I guess.
If it has to be, it has to be.
Well, we had a guest speaker, that was lined up for the night, but had some personal issues, and hopefully the next couple of weeks, we get him rescheduled, and he get in here and bring y'all some outside information and.
So.
In the meantime, it's just us.
It is just us. It is. We can talk about the market climate. What's going on, Jeff Spencer? What's the market look like right now, at least in the Middle Tennessee area?
The market is still good. Jerry and I was having a little conversation here earlier. A lot of the stuff I've been seeing here lately is like design build type stuff, budget type stuff, in which that's all good.
Long window.
But yes, it's a elongated window. It's like you may go through 5, 6, 7 stages of bidding processes before you ever get down to a final hard bid. So now, like we were talking about earlier, Jerry, I'm to the point now to where I've got to find a few projects that I can get under contract in the next month and a half to fill some gaps in between some larger jobs we've got going. So, I'm hoping to see some more hard bid type stuff come through in the next week or two to hopefully pick up some near future work.
But now, and you also are, you're bidding larger jobs, jobs that can take a substantial amount of time, a substantial amount of capital to implement. What's it look like for the owner operator or the guy that's got a couple of guys working with them? I mean, are they in a similar situation right now, or is there anything advantageous to being in that situation?
Well, and the way it is here in Middle Tennessee, which most anywhere has a good infrastructure economy going right now. If you are the smaller contractor, 1 or 2 guys, maybe 1 crew, 2 crews, it's going to depend on how you're set up. You may be working with, builders that are doing like residential type work.
Right.
You may be also working with commercial type stuff. So you've got a larger avenue of stuff, so it's probably not as aggressive in your field. It's like, you still got adequate amount of work, based on the smaller scale type work that you do. But when you're seeking like a large scale project, like I like to have stuff that's going to last 5, 6, 7 months.
Sure.
That way my crews are tied up. I don't have to worry about them. I've got work for them for the near future. And then I try to find these smaller projects to kind of fill the gaps in between these projects. But here lately, the last probably month and a half, everything I worked on has been like budget type stuff.
Okay.
And it may pay off in the end, but it may be early 2022 before I see any of these jobs I'm bidding right now come to light.
Come to fruition.
Right.
Is this a seasonality thing, or is it just we had this massive growth in construction, building, things going on right now? I mean, it's
really hard to answer. It's like we budget
both?
stuff throughout the year. It could be both. We budget stuff throughout the year every year, but it's like all of a sudden for the last probably month and a half, we've had more budget material than what we've had hard bid material.
Okay.
And you know, when you get 80% plus drawings, then that turns into a hard bid number. You know, you've got enough data there to figure out, you know, this is what the job's going to be. We're going to give hard numbers, and this is final round of bidding. But when you're in a budget stage, I mean, depending on the size of the project, how much information you give, like you and I could be bidding against each other, and you see one way to do the project, I see another way.
Sure.
So these GCs, they're having to take a culmination of this data that's coming in and try to figure out, because they're doing a design build for this project. So they're trying to figure out, you know, is your way best, is my way best, which one's going to be the most economical,
Right.
which one's going to give us a quicker turnaround, and you know, that's what they're looking for.
So that's interesting. So this whole design build aspect, that adds this whole other element to the bid process. Whereas, you know, if you're doing a typical type of installation, underground, whatever it may be, it's more about, here's a number. Here, you know, here's the task at hand. Here's the number. Whereas now you have the other element of, you know, they're not only looking at your number, but they're looking at your process,
Right.
and timeline,
Right.
and there are other factors that come into play. I mean, well, obviously timeline is always a factor that's in
Yes.
play, but you know what I'm saying. It's not just, okay, I had this job, it has to be completed by X date. I'm gonna, you know, this is my price, X dollars to complete that job.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
And if you got a GC, you know, this heading up this design build aspect of this project, you're not the only sub they're looking at. You know, they're going to be looking at 3, 4, 5 different subs
Right.
that they deal with on a daily basis that is in your scope of work, whether it be grading, whether it be utilities, whether it be structural, electrical, you know, whatever aspect you're bidding, you know, they're going to be looking at all of them, and then they've got to make a decision. Like, you know, hey, you know, whose design or whose theory do we need to go with? Well, at that point,
Theory.
Right, theory.
That's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At that point, they construct, along with, you know, the civil engineer and architects, they construct a new drawing based off this information, off of a culmination of different subs. Like, hey, I think he's got a good idea. I think he's got a good idea. They regenerate these drawings and send them back out for, you know, now maybe we're at 50% drawings. So now, you know, we're able to tighten the gap a little bit. So it's still a budgetary type bid, but we're giving, you know, a description of what we think will work best and a monetary amount, what we think it's going to do or take to do our portion of the work. So there again, they're still taking, you know, different bidders and different subs from each category, combining them, and then they're going to generate another like 75, 80% drawings. Once you get to like an 80% drawing, like I said earlier, now you are in like hard numbers. So it may take a 2, 3, 4, even a 5 bidding session to be able to get to this point to where, you know, you got final numbers that you can work with.
Right.
But there again, you know, there's still a lot of uncertainties for most projects. Like, you may have to go back to the owner, like, got a change order for this, got a change order for that, because this thing come together so quick in a budget stage that there's a lot of stuff that was left out that could be, you know, potential risk in the future.
Have inexperienced bidders ever kind of thrown a wrench in that process? Now, I know, I guess if you're like really, you know, green, if you will, you might not even be bidding on such project, but have you ever run into that? Just curious.
There's been, you know, a handful of times I've been beaten by an individual or a company that is not as experienced, and they may take a 50% drawing and look at it as like a hard number and not be open enough to see, you know, there's potentials that may not work.
Sure.
So instead of elevating our price to accommodate for those potentials, just because of inexperience, you know, they may end up, you know, going to the next stage of bidding, and there again, they've used their design, they've used their numbers, and, you know, here we are. Well, I'm no longer competitive because they come in at so low,
Right.
because they didn't see the whole grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
that now, you know, they're the front runner.
Yeah.
So yes, there are, but
It
then
happens.
it comes back to bite the GC because they've got to go back to the owner and like, you know,
Yeah.
hey, I've got to have more money. You know, my sub on this area, the sub on this area, you know, they didn't, you know, catch this, they didn't
Right.
see this, and
Right. So yeah. So at the end of the job, the sub may come out on top, but it might be the last job he ever performs.
Right,
for that
exactly,
GC. So, yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
in those design build things, you know, most of your GCs, when I say most, I'm talking about, you know, they're wanting working relationships.
Sure.
They want to build working relationships with their subs to where they can go in the future and give good competitive numbers that they can stand behind, that they're not going to be going back to the owner like, you know, hey, we missed this, we missed that.
Right.
Because it makes them look bad because they're the GC.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So, and it's through trial and error.
Yeah.
And just because you're the new guy and you give the cheapest price doesn't always mean you're the best guy.
That's true. That's true. And it may not necessarily mean that you're wrong, depending on your
Right,
situation.
right.
Yeah. Obviously, I don't think that would be the norm, but it could happen.
Yeah.